Hey movie fans, so exactly 2 years ago today, May the 4th, 2016, I released one of my favorite videos that I've ever done to this date, How It Could Work, Star Wars Episode 8. At the time, I didn't know much about The Last Jedi, the fact that it was even going to be called Last Jedi, nothing. I just kind of pitched my own story for how I thought Episode 8 could go. Granted, I ended up getting a lot of things wrong, but it was still a lot of fun, so I wanted to do that again for this May the 4th with Star Wars Episode 9, How It Could Work. So we're going to take the whole story that I think is going to lay out for Episode 9. Hopefully I get some more right than I did for Episode 8. If not, it's just a fun story pitch I have for how I think the whole new trilogy should be resolved, with all the character arcs, what they go through, everything else. So without further ado, here's Star Wars Episode 9, How It Could Work. First of all, it's set a few years, not a few days, weeks, months, a few years after The Last Jedi. So we have to have both the First Order and the Resistance kind of regain some of their forces, because honestly, the Resistance has the people that are on the Millennium Falcon at the end of The Last Jedi, and that's about it. So we kind of need both groups to be replenished to have a full-out army and a full-out war, which that's the state of the galaxy right now. So the opening crawl has the galaxy is in disarray. War is raging throughout the galaxy as the First Order tries to hunt down the last remnants of the Resistance and squash any hope that they may have. Yes, we need to have the word hope in the opening title because it's just a recurring theme in Star Wars. So of course we have the good side and the bad side. However, the good side is going to be missing a key component, as will be revealed in the opening credits. General Leia Organa has passed away. We don't know how or why. That's going to be explained in some other expanded universe story, but for now, in the opening credits, we find out that General Leia has died, and in this case, Poe has actually taken up her mantle of General of the Resistance. He has now earned that right to be the leader of the Resistance group, because honestly, there's no one else left. And with Leia now unfortunately gone due to the unfortunate death of Carrie Fisher in real life, I feel more comfortable not including her in the story physically. However, her presence will very much be felt in the story with her absence. Case in point, her son, Kylo Ren. With his mother now unfortunately passed away, Kylo has really lost that one link that he had left to humanity. As we saw in Last Jedi, he refused to kill his own mother because there's still some form of goodness to him. Are we gonna fully turn Kylo? I guess we're gonna have to find out. There's no one to control him anymore with Snoke, no one to manipulate him. He has untapped and unchecked power as he wants to basically just rule the galaxy how he sees it, and there's no conscience holding him back anymore now that his mother has passed. Kylo has also undergone a physical change since the last time we saw him in The Last Jedi. Now that he's the main antagonist again and the main villain, and he supposedly has lost any of his humanity that we are now stripped away from him yet again, we're gonna give him back his mask. Just not the mask that he had from The Force Awakens. He's going to be sporting a new mask. We will not see his face for a good portion of this movie. Why? It's because we want to disconnect any emotional feeling that we have to him. We built up some form of emotion of feeling bad for you in The Last Jedi and wanting him to turn to the good side, because Last Jedi really toyed with the notion that there may be a double turn. And I'm still a little disappointed that we didn't get that. But with Kylo being the main antagonist, we have to somewhat detach ourselves. So if we literally close him off from the audience, I think that'll help. Plus, toy sales. Kylo will be back wearing the mask again and will be more vicious than ever, as we see demonstrated in the opening scene of our Episode 9. We see some of the Resistance kind of in the middle of a supply run. They're just kind of stuck in the middle of space. They're just kind of gathering supplies to bring back to the Resistance. It's a handful of people, maybe about 25 to 30, when all of a sudden Kylo Ren's ship and a few other First Order TIE fighters come storming in, surrounding the ship. They don't know why they're here, but all of a sudden Kylo Ren boards the ship and he takes out everyone. Basically, this scene is gonna be the scene from Rogue One when Darth Vader went ham on all those rebels. But this time, it's not gonna be rebels, it's Resistance fighters, and instead of Darth Vader, it's gonna be Kylo Ren sporting a mask this time, and he slaughters everyone. Straight up anger and darkness in Kylo to establish, yep, this is the bad guy now. He just kills everyone. However, we have to have one person that escapes. This time, it's gonna be Rose. Rose from Last Jedi, not my favorite character, but we have to fit her in the story somewhere. She was on this ship. She's the sole survivor. She somehow finds an escape pod and makes her way back to the Resistance base. As was the case in A New Hope, when Darth Vader was searching for information, Kylo Ren is going to be choking out one other survivor besides Rose that he has yet to kill, but he'll totally kill this person. So he's choking out that bearded general that we've seen both in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, whose name completely escapes me. I'm sorry, bearded guy, but you're gonna die anyway. Kylo is interrogating him about some old knowledge. We find out that Kylo Ren is looking for some ancient Sith artifacts, some ancient texts from the Sith world, the old ancient times. He believes that if he finds this old knowledge, some Sith knowledge, that he can become more powerful, maybe the most powerful Force user that has ever existed. Basically, that's the draw of any dark side Sith or Dark Lord that has ever fallen to the dark side, is wanting more power, and Kylo wants more and more and more power. However, in the years from The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren has not just been sitting by looking for some old textbooks. He's actually been raising up the Knights of Ren. He's been growing their numbers significantly because the Knights of Ren were not in Last Jedi, but Force Awakens. We're going to be bringing them back for Episode 9. So we cut to another planet where we see this village is being terrorized by a few Knights of Ren, maybe 2 or 3, and they're just kind of demolishing this town, more or less just causing a ruckus because they can, or they're looking for information, whatever you want to put in this situation. It's more or less just the Knights of Ren causing mayhem for the time being. They have a group of children that are basically their hostages that they're going to take with them because evil people do evil things. When all of a sudden you hear a voice from a dark alley go, "Stop, leave them alone." It's a somewhat familiar voice. We've heard it before, but it's in dark robes. We've never seen this person before, when all of a sudden the individual lifts up their hood to reveal Rey. This time, Rey is not the person that we saw in Last Jedi, because years have gone by. Rey is now a full-on Jedi Knight. Just like the transformation Luke Skywalker underwent from Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi, Rey has undergone as well, going from somewhat knowledgeable into the Force to a full-on Jedi Knight. I'll tell you one more time, leave them alone. And the Knights of Ren think, okay, we can take her because there's 2 or 3 of us and only 1 of you, and we've been trained just like you have. Oh, how wrong they are, because in the years since The Last Jedi, Rey not only has trained her abilities in the Force, she's also trained her abilities in combat, because so far she's been a little rough around the edges, but not anymore. She's been honing her craft as she whips out her own lightsaber that is not single-bladed, but it is in fact a double-bladed lightsaber. So I'm thinking with her staff that she's been carrying on for quite a while that she's actually going to end up being more adept at fighting with a double-bladed lightsaber, because she knows how to fight more with a staff than a single-bladed lightsaber. And now that she doesn't have Luke's anymore, thanks to the events of Last Jedi, with it being split in half, she very well may end up having 2 kyber crystals out of that lightsaber. So she can use those 2 crystals, attach it to bits and pieces from her staff to create a double-bladed lightsaber. And here we have a really fun action piece of Rey single-handedly fighting off 2 to 3 Knights of Ren, showing off these new moves and abilities that she's able to garner, and seemingly has the upper hand when one of the Knights of Ren tries to sneak up behind her and more or less give her a cheap shot and kill her while her back is turned. However, that Knight of Ren, yes, singular, Knight of Ren, gets shot down by a stray bullet that has been shot from a blaster from a long way off. Rey turns to see who the shooter is, and it of course is Finn. Rey and Finn worked together a lot for most of Force Awakens, however they were split up for Last Jedi. So I'm going to bring them back together again before we split them up again. A la just like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. Rey's going to end up following a lot of the same beats as Luke, because Star Wars repeats a lot of the same trends. So now they're working together, they make some of the Knights of Ren flee, they of course run back to Kylo Ren with their tails between their legs going, Rey has gotten more powerful, we don't know if we can take her, you underestimate what she's become, she's a full-on Jedi Knight now. Kylo of course, furious at the news and of the cowardice of his so-called Knights of Ren, slaughters all 3 of those Knights of Ren, saying, no, she is now more powerful and you have failed me. Rey and Finn make their way back to the Resistance base to meet up with Poe, Rose, and all the other Resistance fighters. It's here that Rose tells them, okay, Kylo's looking for all these ancient artifacts with something called the Sith, I think? Because of course the Sith has gone into legend. However, there's one member of the Resistance that knows the Sith teachings and the name Sith better than anyone else because she was there the first time. And that, of course, is Maz Kanata, who is going to be kind of important for this one because Maz was there the first time. There's a lot of interesting stories you can go with Maz because it was established that she's been around for a while, so she was there the first time that the Sith were there. So Maz more or less fills everyone in saying, okay, there's a lot of dangerous knowledge in the old world that existed with the Sith thousands of years ago. We can't let Kylo get this information. So we need to find this before he does and basically destroy whatever is in, whether it be a temple or the planet, whatever the case may be, we can't let Kylo get this archives or information from the Sith. This is where Rey breaks off to more or less consult with Luke, who is now a Force ghost. As we can kind of guess, she consults with Luke more or less of kind of how to proceed and if he knows anything about the Sith planet, the Sith archives. Luke, of course he does, because he knows almost all about the Sith, the Jedi, the way of the Force. So he kind of tips her off as to, this is going to be a bad idea. But if you are so dead set on determining and finding this artifact, if you think you're strong enough, here's the location. So here's Rey breaking off to do her own thing. Now we cut back to the Resistance with Maz and Poe. Maz is like, we are not going to be able to take Kylo and his forces on head-to-head right now. We need more reinforcements. So I have a friend. He's been out of the fight for quite a while, but I think we need to bring him in. And Poe's like, great, do I know this guy? And Maz is like, yeah, I think you do. Lando Calrissian. Because we need Lando at some point in this trilogy, and from a story perspective, he can have a good arc if we do this right. So, Maz and Poe are going to go on the hunt to try and bring Lando, more or less recruit him, to the Resistance. But it's going to be a lot harder than you'd think. Right before they leave, Poe leaves Finn in charge of the Resistance. Not straight up like general or anything, but be like, hey, just make sure nobody does anything stupid, like run away. You can kind of have a knowing joke about Finn being a guy that runs away, but this is kind of where we can complete his running away arc. Be like, you're in charge for a while, don't run away. And Finn, of course, is like, I won't, you'll be fine. Just make sure you bring back help, okay? So Maz and Poe find Lando in an old run-down casino, kind of like Canto Bight, but not as dumb and stupid of a scene as Canto Bight, because this will actually have some form of meaning and structure in our story. As per, you can probably guess, Lando, of course, is hitting it up at the card table, trying to pawn off some winnings. Lando is not the same guy that we saw last time we saw him in Return of the Jedi. He's no longer in charge of Cloud City. That's gone to somebody else. He was not kicked out or anything. It was peacetime. He didn't need to be in charge of the whole city anymore. He went back to being a smuggler for a little bit. Maz is just like, Lando, we need you for the fight. Come on, you need to help us. You have more connections than anybody else in the underworld, or just in the political world, as you've served time in both. Lando, however, he's more hesitant to join the fight, as he still feels somewhat guilty that he's been sitting on the sidelines for so long. You gotta think, he was sitting on the sidelines when one of his best friends with Han died. He was sitting on the sidelines when Leia died. We have heard absolutely nothing from him. He didn't respond for the pleas for help in Last Jedi when they were on Crate. So he still feels incredibly guilty that he's been more or less sitting on the sidelines because he didn't feel he needed to join the fight. Poe reasons with him, be the great general that you used to be. I grew up with stories of General Solo, General Calrissian. They were my heroes growing up. I looked up to you. And Lando's like, that guy doesn't exist anymore, kid. Go find someone somewhere else. So dejected, Maz and Poe go to leave to go back to the Resistance when all of a sudden the base gets attacked. Now, before we get into the attack, we're gonna cut back to Rey, who has found the Sith planet. This Sith planet holds a lot of the old ancient knowledge and temples of the Sith. It's a very barren and destitute place. It's run down, it's creepy for lack of a better term. It just seems off, and Rey can somewhat sense that. She lands somewhat near a temple, so she makes her way to this barren and empty temple, trying to find some knowledge. And when she gets inside, it gets even a little bit weirder. So like Luke's journey, we have to have an Empire Strikes Back-esque scene. So we kind of got that in Last Jedi with a little bit of whatever that was, but we're gonna try and do it again in episode 9. So when Rey is walking around this temple trying to find any form of information, she starts hearing whispers and voices echoing through this supposedly empty place, going, Rey, Rey. It's familiar voices, maybe like Luke's or Leia's or other voices that she thinks she knows, almost whispering to her, calling to her throughout this hallway, the various hallways and corridors of the Sith temple, when all of a sudden she senses a familiar presence and she sees two silhouettes down a hallway. Rey. We cut back to Maz and Poe on Lando's planet, location, whatever we want to call it. They're back where Lando is, as this place is now being attacked by the First Order. However, they don't care about Lando because Lando's not a factor, as we've established so far. They're here for Maz, because Maz will have information about where these Sith artifacts, Sith information about the old world will be, because as I said before, she knows a lot about the old ways since she's been around forever. So we have a great action piece of Lando, who clearly still has something in him, Lando and Poe trying to protect kind of the people around them, as well as protecting Maz, but unfortunately it's all for naught, as Maz end up still getting captured by the First Order and taken to Kylo Ren. Poe, dejected, more or less screams at Lando, how could you let this happen? Lando, of course, screams back, if you didn't come here, you wouldn't have destroyed half the city. Maybe she could have escaped. You guys would have had a better chance. They were tracking you guys. You were in an open spot, ready to be picked off. This is why I stayed out of the fight, because you guys make stupid decisions like this. Poe, furious, leaves to kind of rally some of the forces in the Resistance to try and get Maz back. We cut back to Rey, back in the Sith temple location thing, where she's facing these two silhouettes or shadows, whatever we want to call them, and they kind of have the same presence that she feels when she's with her parents. It's kind of giving her this false sense of hope that, maybe my parents are alive, as she's still kind of clinging on to this hope that maybe one day she'll have a family. The shadows call out to her, Rey! She turns around again to see the shadows, but they're gone. Just like her parents did all those years ago. 1 minute they're here, 1 minute they're gone. Like I said, it's going to be very reminiscent of the Empire Strikes Back scene of you have to face your fears in order to conquer them. Rey, now seeing that she's all alone again, feels this weight of, I will never find my parents. I will never know information. But she can't mourn and be sad for very long, because who shows up but the First Order with Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren. Maz has given them the information that they need to reach this temple. Rey has not found any information, but the Knights of Ren and Kylo do not know that, so they start marching their way to the temple to not just finish her off, but find any information that they can to become the most powerful group in the galaxy. Kylo and the Knights of Ren are about to land on the planet. All of a sudden you hear a whole bunch of ships enter the atmosphere from hyperspace. It's the Resistance. They brought everyone. Granted, they know they're still radically outnumbered, but they've come for Maz, and they've come to stop Kylo. One final showdown. Now we're gonna split this battle up into 3 parts. However, it won't be like Phantom Menace, where we're kind of confused as to why there's all these fights going on. We're gonna split this up and then have it still make sense. So we're gonna have an air battle, basically in space, which will be led by Poe. We're gonna have a strong aerial battle like the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, we're gonna have Finn leading the ground troops to stop any First Order fighters on the ground, trying to get information there, more or less showing that he's not afraid anymore. He is a leader, he's not running away from anything. We're gonna have him literally be face to face with everyone else. And then lastly, we're gonna have Rey fighting Kylo and the Knights of Ren. So we're gonna have 3 main fights, but since we're invested in all 3 of these main characters, it makes sense and we're not going to be super confused or apathetic to a particular fight. We're going to care about what's going on with all 3. The fight is very heated and very intense and goes on for quite a while, with Poe sustaining a lot of losses. He's losing a lot of fighters in the sky. Finn is outnumbered drastically, but he's not giving up. However, Rey and Kylo have yet to come to blows. They're having an interesting conversation, very similar to, of course, Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi. We have to have some story building in between the fights. So before they even lock up with their lightsabers, Rey and Kylo more or less are kind of going, well, what led us to this moment? Why are we so interweaved together? Rey, of course, because it's who she is, still believes there's some form of good in Kylo, and she's still trying to turn him. Where did it all go wrong for you, Ben? What happened? What do you mean, what happened? I've always been this way. You saw what Luke did to me. He kicked me out. He saw that I was not good enough. My family? You know, my dad, the great General Solo, the great smuggler, one of the greatest smugglers in the galaxy. My mom, Princess General Leia, one of the galaxy's great heroes. And me, Ben Solo. Wow, that kid had a lot to live up to. I had a legacy. I had a name that I had to live up to. You had a family. That is something I never had. How can you not see that? Kylo, of course, retorts, you had a family. Mine just didn't leave me like they left you. And of course, this leaves Rey absolutely furious as she goes absolutely ham on Kylo, a la Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi going ham on Vader. Now this is by far our most intense and personal fight, as the two of them just go to town. They are incredibly aggressive and hate-filled, both of them. However, we cut back to the rest of the fighting as Finn has finally reached Maz, who's been on the ground. Him and his troops finally get to Maz, but they're still kind of trapped, so they need to find a way to get back to their ships, to get back to the Resistance and get Maz to safety. Poe's not doing too well in space. He's losing massive casualties. He's getting completely overwhelmed and outgunned in space. All hope seems lost, when all of a sudden on the intercom we hear, I told you guys you were bad at planning. Well, looks like I have perfect timing, when all of a sudden we see Lando come swooping in, and he brought some friends of his, some old smuggling friends. He brought some reinforcements to help even the fight, because we need to kind of give Lando an arc. Everyone else of the original trilogy members has some form of an arc. Lando is a beloved character. Let's finish his story and finish his story right, giving him one last heroic moment in the sun. Him, Chewie, and a whole bunch of the other smugglers are leading the offensive to try and even the score, even the playing field, and then the Resistance finally start getting an upper hand and is able to get Finn, Maz, and the rest of the troops back up to space to more or less even a playing field. They've won in the air and on the ground. But what about the very important battle in the temple between Kylo and Rey? This fight is raging on as Kylo has more or less kind of instructed the Knights of Ren to hold off, of all things. You would think he would want the advantage, but Kylo swears he wants to do this himself. He needs to defeat Rey himself, because as we've seen, Kylo has never gotten the upper hand on Rey, ever. Dating back to The Force Awakens, that was a big point of controversy, is how is she more powerful than Kylo, a fully trained Jedi? Maybe she's just always been stronger in the Force and she's more attuned with the Force. Kylo? Maybe he just does not get that. The whole time they're fighting, Kylo is more or less antagonizing or egging on Rey, saying things like, isn't it ironic? You didn't have a family and you really, really wanted one. I had a family and I didn't want one. Trust me, they're not worth it. But how much is it worth to you? as they're fighting, Rey's like, wait, what do you mean? How much is it worth to me? So they both stop what they're doing. And Kylo's like, I'm sure this power and this knowledge that's in here, with this knowledge, we can find a way to bring back your family, bring back your parents. Then you can try again. You can have your family once again. All you have to do is join me. Offers his hand again, just like he did at the end of Last Jedi, and like every other Star Wars movie, join the dark side. Rey contemplates for a minute, then she goes into an angry fury yet again, chopping off Kylo's extended hand, and just continues to go ham on him again. This time, like Luke Skywalker did to Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, of a clearly downed opponent, and just continues to wail on them, to the point that during this beatdown, Rey ends up with Kylo's lightsaber, and has Kylo's own lightsaber to Kylo's throat. And Rey looks down and sees the anger inside of her, and sees this clinging on to the past with her parents is ultimately her greatest weakness. So she needs to let go. That's the old Jedi adage of let go of your hate, let go of everything that holds you back. So she throws away Kylo's lightsaber, just like Luke Skywalker. My family did leave me, and I know they're no longer here, but I have a new family now, and I won't let the past continue to destroy my future. She starts walking away from Kylo, who's screaming at her. Why you? Why? Why was it you? She turns back. What? Why did the Force choose you to be the powerful one? There's something here, some force that's connecting us. Why was it you that saw the light and not me? And Rey, realizing, it's like, because I'm willing to accept my past and be okay with it. You need to accept your mistakes. You killed your father. Kylo, for the first time, actually starts showing grief for his actions, of all the people that he's killed. It wasn't my fault. It was Snoke's. It wasn't me. It was this pressure of feeling the Solo name, the Skywalker name. I was no one. Snoke took advantage of that. I knew it wasn't. I wanted the power. I sensed the power. Rey, I know. And she more or less tries to console Kylo as best as she can. And Kylo's like, I'm not worthy of redemption in the eyes of the Force, but I can do my part. He force pushes Rey out of the temple, like full on, showing more power than he ever has. He proceeds to fight all the last members of the Knights of Ren. All of them. And keep in mind, he did just lose a hand, so he's single-handedly fighting off the Knights of Ren to the best of his ability. He's done with that past life. He wants it all gone. So he's fighting off the Knights of Ren as best as he can, as Rey has been kicked out of the temple with no way in. Sensing he's about to be defeated by the Knights of Ren, he force pushes everyone back in some form of an explosion, and Kylo brings the entire temple down on himself and the Knights of Ren, burying everyone inside, all the knowledge, all the information. He sacrifices himself, ultimately finding redemption in his death. Like his grandfather before him, his past deeds end up getting canceled out by a heroic turn at the end. So Rey meets up with the last of the Resistance, more or less to celebrate. So that takes care of just about everyone, I believe. Kind of wrapping everything up. Yeah, the First Order isn't completely gone, but the Empire wasn't gone at the end of Return of the Jedi. There's still a war to be waged, but with all the major players, it seems like victory is now on the horizon for the Resistance, with new stories to be told and new avenues to be explored in the galaxy. Well, what did you guys think about my story pitch for how Episode 9 could go down? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you see and want to see more, subscribe to the channel, or find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Uncharted Media. Stay sharp, movie guys and gals, and may the Force be with you.